Okay, I'm going to show you a few key features of Inkscape that allow us to make some pretty nice looking keychains or other designs that would be used for the laser cutter. Okay, first of all, here's your page, and you can resize that. We'll do that later. Here's a series of tools you can use. We'll use some of those. We'll use this for coloring, which isn't really important for the laser cutter in terms of color, except that we can assign different colors to different laser powers and settings. Um, then, um, and then some other things up here, which I'll show you as we need them. So first, I'm going to just make a simple keychain. And let's say I want to grab this and I drag a box over. Okay. Yours might not look like that. It's because this is using the last settings I used. For example, yours might not be filled. Well, that's fine. Down here, I can make it filled black. I can make it not filled. So just clicking on these things down here, the X means not filled. Black would mean it's filled black, gray. I could do all sorts of colors. I could do purple. Okay, let's make it not filled. And just so we can start, if I want to make the line a certain color, then I do the same thing, only have to hold shift down. So I can make a black line all the way around it. Now, right now, I am still in the making rectangle mode. So if I click again and drag, I'm going to make another rectangle. Now, I may not want that. So in order to select stuff, I have to use this select tool. So if it wasn't selected, I can highlight it or click on the edge. I can't click on the middle. It doesn't recognize, but if I click on the edge, it'll highlight. I can just hit delete and get rid of that square. Now back to this square, there are some interesting things that I can do with it. First of all, I can make it precisely positioned and precisely sized. So I'm going to make a keychain, a rectangular one. More than an inch wide is kind of obnoxious, and more than 70 millimeters long is kind of obnoxious. So that's a kind of a good keychain size. Um, we're going to see later, this doesn't really matter position, but for aligning things, other things to it can help. So I'm going to make this at 100 and 100 just to make my math easy. The position's over here. I'm going to zoom in on it. The way you zoom in is if you hold down the control button and then use your scroll wheel on your mouse, you can zoom in. Then, if I'm letting go now, if you hold your scroll wheel on your mouse as a button, just press it down. Don't roll it, but press it down. It's like it's a panning button, just like in Fusion. So I can kind of center that so I can work in this space. Okay, if I click somewhere else, I can see my outline box. But let's say, I want to round over these corners. Well, what I can do is I can click on the box tool again, click on this, and then this corner here you see is round while the other ones are square. If I grab that and drag it down, it makes a circular radius in the corner. And I could specify how big. Let's say I make that 4 millimeters right here. I specify just how big that is. Okay? And if I wanted to make it non-circular, I can go like this and make an elliptical curve. Okay, I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to drag that all the way to the corner and keep it circular. And so now that I've made those circular curves, that's nice. Okay, now something about laser cutting. If lines, it recognizes as paths to either draw or cut, depending on the laser power. Lower power usually just draws, and higher power will cut through it. And then shaded areas, anything with a color patch, is something to engrave. So let's say I want to make a border around this. I want to cut this out and then make a border around it. Well, I'm going to do a couple things. First of all, I'm going to click on this and do Control C, Control V, or just copy it. And I'm going to set that aside. You'll see why in a second. I'm going to hold that there. Come back to this one and make another square inside it. So I'm going to make another square inside it. Notice it recognizes my last settings. Now this one, I want the corners to be 2 millimeters, and you'll see why in a little bit. I'm going to make that 2 millimeters. Um, and then I'm going to make the size of it 54 millimeters wide. Yeah, sorry, 64 millimeters wide. 64. and 19. Okay. Now, you might have guessed I did that, so it gives a nice symmetric looking shape. This is kind of like the outline or offset tool in Fusion. But I want this perfectly in the center. So I can do two ways of doing that. I want to show you the kind of Fusion-esque way. I'm going to use these coordinates to make it exact. Now remember, I made this one at 100 and 100. That's this top corner right here. I made this thing 6 millimeters smaller both directions, which means I want a 3 millimeter gap all the way around. So I'm going to make this one at 103 and 103. Okay, and I can hit enter, and I now have that perfectly centered. So I now have this space that I can fill outline. But you'll notice if I click on it and fill it in, let's say with purple, it fills the whole thing. It doesn't recognize these two rectangles as two different pieces. It's just there's one rectangle and another rectangle on top of it. So if I want to actually join those together, I can use this tool here. I select them both, just drag and hover over both of them, and use this tool right here. It's a shape builder tool. I click on it, and it allows me to pick portions of overlap. So it recognizes the difference here. I can click this one and hit the finish button right here. Now I have just that shape. If I make it gray, that will be gray. If I turn it off, I can turn it off. And then purple, I can do it like that. Okay, so now I have this area that can be engraved in its full, like fill it in this engraved area. Now you need to remember that it's not going to be purple. It's whatever is the burnt color. If it was wood, it'd be burnt looking wood. If it was a two-toned acrylic with the top layer being purple and the underlying layer being white, this would actually be white, whereas this would be purple. But the reason why we need this to be colored is it cuts wherever the color swatch is. So this will now cut this area out. Okay, now I might put my name here, and I can show you how to do that in a second. But let's say, my general tag, I want it to be engraved on this outline, and then I want to cut out the very outer edge. If I click on this one, and let's say I make a red boundary by holding down Shift and click on red, you might not be able to see it very well. I'll zoom in, but you can see there's red on both sides because this is a complete shape. Well, that's going to mean it would cut the inside and the outside, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna shift and hold the X down, so I have no line on this one. But I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to line it up. Okay, now I can use this to precisely line it, but I do want to show you one feature that is pretty nice. Okay, I'm going to use the snap feature, which is up here. It might look a little different on yours, but it's up here. If you click on that, now I grab it, it can snap to things it recognizes. So it says, oh, this looks like you have some similar spots. So it snaps it to that. Now, if I hold down the Shift button and click on that, and now I zoom in, there's red only on the outside. So I can, if this was it, I can now take it to the laser cutting software, and it will recognize the red line and think, oh, this is a cut line, and it'll recognize this purple swatch. It's like, oh, that's an engrave area. And so then you can set powers appropriately to successfully cut through material and engrave the depth or effect you want. So that's kind of some important tools to note. First, for laser cutting, you have to have color swatches for areas you want to cut. And if you want to have different effects, then you have to have different colors. So let's say I want text to be here. I'm going to use the text tool. I'm going to type in name. That looks huge. That's okay. I'm going to type in name and then grab my select tool. I'm just going to shrink it down to the right size. If I hold down Control while I do that, it'll keep the same aspect ratio. So let's drag that in. Oh, I'm not liking the snapping now, so I'm going to undo the snapping. And I can drag that in the middle. I can leave that black or make it green or whatever. And it already doesn't have an outline, but just to make sure I could hold down Shift and hit the X to make sure. And I can now engrave at two different depths or two different intensities. So if I want this one just lightly and this one deeply engraved, I could do that. And same thing with cut lines. If I want a line that's going to just draw and not cut through, I would need it a different color. Okay, so that's things that are important. Color patches are for engrave, and different colors give you different options for parameters, laser cutting parameters. And then lines are for cuts or drawing. And again, if you want different effects, you have to have different colors of your lines. So this one would be ready to engrave the name at one power setting, the edge at a different power setting, and then cut the outer boundary out. Okay, now I'll just show a couple other features that are nice. What if I want this name perfectly centered in here? Well, I can highlight everything, and I can go up to Object and go down to Align and Distribute, and so over here a palette appears. This is the Align and Distribute palette, and there are more palettes that we can play with too. But I'm going to go and center them that way and center them that way, and it shifted just slightly. So now that's perfectly centered in there. So that is some tools you can use to make a precise name tag with different effects. I'm going to show you that I use those same tools to make this keychain here. Okay, it's pretty darn cool. Again, it's kind of the opposite of what you'd think. Everywhere that you see purple, it's going to engrave. We have this cool acrylic that has purple on top and white underneath. So everywhere that's purple is going to become white, and everything that's white is going to be purple. So we'll have the purple G with the white background, and then the purple here with the white name and the graduation year. And then if you look closely, there's a red line on the outside and a red line here that I used to cut an outline over everything and then cut a keychain hole. So that's what I wanted to show you.